On May the 17th, 1940, 12 Blenheims from 82 Squadron set off from Watton Airfield in Norfolk to attack German forces near Gembloux in Belgium. Not a single Blenheim arrived at the target. 11 were shot down, mainly by anti-aircraft batteries, and 1 limped home severely damaged. An entire squadron had been destroyed in one raid. 48 hours later, the squadron was reformed due to the persistence of the squadron CO, the Earl of Bandon. One of the replacements was Sergeant Bill McGrath.
So on arrival at Watton, of course, we found the ground staff and so on very gloomy, as you can imagine. Morale on there was a bit shattered, to put it mildly. And I mean, it must have been pretty sobering to find that they sent a whole load of aircraft out and none came back. So things were a bit sort of fraught. They flew in new Blenheims for us and so on. And we wondered what in heaven's name was going to happen next.
On August the 13th, 1940, 12 Blenheims from the reformed 82 Squadron set off to attack Aalborg airfield in northern Denmark. This was a strategic target as it was being used as a staging post between Germany and Norway. The raid was led by the squadron's new commanding officer, Wing Commander E.C. de Virac-Lart, Paddy Bandon having been posted.
The Wing Commander, the Earl of Bandon, was a hard act to follow, so he probably had a very difficult time. Certainly the squadron morale was not as good as it had been, and because we'd had a lot of faith in Bandon, and of course de Lart would certainly wasn't quite the same. He hadn't the same charisma as Bandon had, which made his job very, very difficult. I must say I have a lot of sympathy for him because he was a very brave man.
The Bristol Blenheim was unfortunately poorly suited to the role that had been thrust upon it, so specific tactics had to be adopted.
Basically, we'd learned that the right thing to do was to go in cloud as much as you possibly could, so you could pop in the base of it, so you could pop into it if there's anything aggressive was coming in your direction, and hide for a bit. And having attacked your target, which were usually coastal targets or that type of thing, the thing was to go right down onto the ground and come home very, very low level so that no fighter could get at you very vulnerable underneath.
The wireless operator air gunner on Bill McGrath's aircraft was Sergeant Bill Greenwood.
Take off was just as normal, take off, and then formate on the rest of the squadron and head for Denmark.
Once the squadron was in formation, the idea was to fly a straight track over the North Sea and make landfall on a parallel track with Aalborg. However, it soon became apparent that the lead aircraft was flying at least 2 degrees off course. Radio silence meant that Wing Commander Lart could not be informed of the problem.
When we had this nice cloud cover all the way in the North Sea, where honestly it didn't really matter very much, when we got within about 10 miles of the Danish coast, the cloud disappeared completely, and we had a bright, blue, beautiful August day. Not only that, but we found we were hitting the coast well south of where we should have done.
At this point, one of the aircraft, flown by Sergeant Barron, turned back due to the fact that they appeared to be low on fuel. This left the remaining 11 aircraft a longer than expected journey over enemy territory in clear weather conditions.
Frankly, my own personal view at the time, and I think a lot of other people's, was, without any cloud cover and with this amount of land cover, we're not going to do it, we're not going to make an attack.
If the wing commander at the beginning of the flight decides to carry on, well, you carry on. So we had half an hour's flight over Denmark.
We ploughed all the way from, more or less, from the southeastern end of Denmark up to the northwestern end, which must have signaled to every German within many, many miles, the fact that we were coming and making sure that we were going to get a hot welcome.
The squadron was split into two groups, A Flight and B Flight, with the intention of confusing the enemy defences by attacking on two different headings. Almost inevitably, they were spotted and 9 Messerschmitt 109s were dispatched to intercept them. A Flight flew in at low level and were immediately attacked by the German fighters. 5 of the 6 were shot down and 1 was forced to crash land. 11 out of the 18 aircrew were killed. Some minutes later, B Flight attacked.
When we were in sight of Aalborg, the 2 fighters appeared, and I notified the pilot that there were 2 fighters coming up. And about the same time, he said the flight was being shot at the A Flight. And well, it was just a case of sitting there and watching where the fighters were going and having a shot at them.
I can remember looking down over the bomb site. You could see the gun flashes on the ground. We were as low as that, really, and feeling pretty uncomfortable about it. However, we managed to get our bombs away, and very, very shortly afterwards we lost an engine. Basically, we then just were trying to, we were out of the formation, we had one engine on fire and under attack, and in a very short time indeed we lost the other engine. And we were left in no doubt that I think Don Blair did the right thing. He picked a good bit of the fjord to put the airplane down in. I lost consciousness. I can't remember the crash itself. All I can remember was it being very, very hot in the airplane.
After the crash, as I said, the navigator was just a few feet away from me, and the pilot, he was floating further out, with his Mae West inflated. We were interrogated, and that's what they told us. We were prisoners of war.
Bill McGrath was badly injured and had to spend a year in hospital with injuries including a broken hip. Remarkably, he managed to escape from captivity and walked across the Pyrenees to freedom, a feat for which he was awarded the military medal. 9 crew members from B Flight were killed, and all the remaining aircraft were either destroyed or forced to crash land. 82 Squadron had been decimated once again. In May 1990, a memorial was unveiled at Watton in memory of those who perished on the Aalborg raid. This is one of the propellers that was recovered in 1981 from R3800, the aircraft flown by Flight Lieutenant Sims. Many of the facts involved in this raid were unearthed by a Danish detective, Ole Rønnest. His patience and determination over the years resulted in a virtually complete picture of the whole attack. Without his efforts, the full story may never have been pieced together and given the publicity it so deserves. The raid on Aalborg exemplified the problems facing Bomber Command in the early years of the war. The aircraft they had at the time had been superseded by German fighter design and were immensely vulnerable to attack. However, it was inconceivable that we could not be in a position to strike back at the Germans. The bravery of the crews of these aircraft was unmatched, and for many years largely forgotten. Only recently has their rightful place in the history of World War II been restored.